Major moves. We going all in. Like we got nothing to lose. We making moves. We making major moves. We making moves. We making major moves. We making moves.
What is up, everybody? I'm at home chilling. I was getting ready to do some of my receipts here. By receipts, I mean my kilometers to input into my balance sheet. And then I caught wind of this video here, and it was so hot I had to fucking bring it to you guys. Check this out, okay? This is like, listen, just listen.
States dollar under threat. Well, the U.S. dollar became the backbone of the global economy after World War II because of America's robust economy, its democracy, and its transparent regulatory systems, which made the nation seem like a safe place for international investors. But now the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, have announced plans to develop a new currency.
Ripple is in with all of these individual sovereign countries. They're in there with Brazil, they're in there with Russia, they're in there with China, they're in there with India, they're in there with Saudi Arabia, they're in there with, that's all of them, right? And then you have Turkey coming in now, you have Mexico coming in, you have Argentina coming. Ripple is already in there with each and every one of these countries here. All right, they're in there like fucking swimwear.
Their goal is to reduce reliance on the U.S. dollar and other Western currencies as well, and protect themselves from international pressure. In fact, Brazil and China have already struck a deal to bypass the dollar when paying for trade goods, which is a major milestone in Beijing's long-term plans to establish its own currency, the yuan, as the dominant international currency. So, what will this new currency look like, and what will it mean for the dollar? Well, joining us now is Professor John Quelch from the Miami Herbert Business School at the University of Miami. So the BRICS nations aren't a formal trade bloc. So if they do in fact create this new currency, how will it ultimately be used?
So I think what we'd find is that it would initially be used in very large transactions that are government-style transactions between two or more of the countries involved. Just to give a little bit of background here, it is the case that the U.S. dollar has a role that is outsized relative to the 24% of world GDP that the U.S. commands. So the U.S. dollar is involved in almost 90% of all international trade settlements, and around about 60% of foreign currency reserves around the world held by central banks are held in U.S. dollars. So the BRICS nations combined, their GDP is around about 25% of world GDP, vis-a-vis the US now at 24%. And so it's not surprising that these nations collectively are saying, hey, wait a minute, why should our macroeconomic policies and exchange rates be at the mercy of US dollar Federal Reserve decision-making?
So break down what this would mean. If this currency does come to fruition, how is it going to impact the strength of the U.S. dollar, and what does it mean for the average person out there?
Well, a good analogy, Natasha, would be the euro, which, of course, has now been around for 3+ decades. And when the euro came in, it was, not regarded as that strong an opponent to the dollar. But the fact is that the European nations have, of course, used the euro to facilitate all of their intra-European trade, and some trade beyond that as well is now carried out in euros. So what I think you would see here, if there is such a BRICS-type association,
Euro's dying. We saw yesterday Christine Lagarde saying that digital euros coming out in October this year, 2023. If not this year, if not October, then they will push that timeline back. But the digital euro is coming. The European dollar is dead. The USD is dead. Canadian dollar is dead. They are all dead. We're moving digitally. They're taking that liquidity from that old world, just sucking the shit out of that and throwing it over there into the crypto realm, which is where you and I already are.
which I think, by the way, would be very difficult to pull off because there is no trade bloc, as you said, that involves these 5 nations. But if there were such a currency, as I said, it would primarily be used initially for intra trade among the 5 nations before then being potentially expanded out to other nations. The Chinese have, of course, long aspired to develop a digital yuan as an alternative trading currency. They haven't made a tremendous amount of progress, and so I think this partnership is reflective of that, and the Chinese are trying to use the BRICS association as a way to further push the yuan, though they're saying it doesn't matter if it's a digital rupee, a digital yuan, a digital ruble, but in actuality, I think we all know that it would likely be a digital yuan, or at least be heavily based on a digital yuan if it were to come into existence.
I mean, we do know that obviously the BRICS nations and China are not the only nations to explore using alternatives to the US dollar. What other nations are considering doing the same? And could we see other countries around the world joining the BRICS nations?
It's possible, but I think they have to prove themselves first before others are going to line up. I mean, when you're thinking...
That's a lie. They've already proven themselves. They've collected tonnage of gold. Each and every individual sovereign country within the BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Mexico's now joined. They all have their own gold, all right? They all have their own gold. Bet they all have their own gold, but they have to prove themselves. They've proven themselves already. They've split the East and the West now, just ripped it apart. NATO allies are now going over to the BRICS nation. They've proven themselves. So he's giving you truths, but not the whole story of the truth.
About international trade settlements. This is not something that you want to waste too much time worrying about. And so it's very convenient for every nation to...
Digital currencies. We've been talking about this. All right, you have your tangible assets, you have your CBDC, which acts as the reserve. The bank's reserves, the central bank reserve, then you have the agnostic bridge currency being XRP. I'll call it what it is. I'll call a spade, I'll call a square, a fucking duck, a duck. XRP is an agnostic bridge currency, the only agnostic bridge currency that does what it does in terms of liquidity as well, and IOUs, and moving money, the amount of money at the speed it does, and the fees, and the low fees that it does. I don't care if someone comes on my channel and tries to rip me apart. Fucking come at me. All right, I've done my research. Come at me if you think I'm wrong. Present your research if you think you're right. Either way, it doesn't matter. I don't give a shit what the BIS is using as for their proof of concepts and whatnot. They're not using Ethereum. Ethereum was given a free fucking pass so it can be used to test. Individual banks now can use a regulated entity such as Ethereum to use their tests as a sandbox. Ethereum acts as a computer. Bitcoin acts as a ledger, and that's it. It's a ledger, and that is it. Listen to Michael Saylor before this clown talking about, yeah, Bitcoin's going to be the reserve currency to back up the U.S. How does that even make fucking English sense? Bitcoin gets its value from trading back and forth, and it's traded within the U.S. dollar. So if the U.S. dollar falls, Bitcoin falls. There is no price discovery. Bitcoin doesn't just attach itself to something else. Bitcoin's done at that point. All right? This isn't no freedom, hurrah, we're going to save your ass with Bitcoin, some entity outside the sovereign digital realm, right, against a regulated liability network. Not going to happen. Never. Not going to happen. There's not going to be no two digital, like, infrastructures, one within the banking realm, one outside. Like, get the fuck out of here with that. Like, what grade are we in right now? What grade are we in for people to think that shit? Come on. Right? I'm not putting anybody down, but be realistic. right? We've had cash for how many years? If you use anything outside of cash, right, when it was just cash before it was digital, if you use anything outside of that, anything that's outside of legal money, you will get your ass arrested. Talking about using Bitcoin as some sovereign currency. Not gonna fucking happen, alright? Never in our lifetime.
Use the US dollar as its settlement mechanism. However, as I said earlier, the substantial increase in US interest rates in the last 6 months has really brought home to emerging economies in particular that have dollar-denominated debt that there's a significant risk in.
Why do you think all these countries are de-dollarizing now? They're reducing their risk because they're all emerging economies, all right? So they want something that has low fees. You need to change your infrastructure, change your model, change your game plan, change your vision, change how you do things. If you stay on the old path, the old guard, the old way of thinking and doing things, you're going to have high fees. You're going to have inflation. You're not having inflation in cryptocurrencies. You're not having inflation in gold and silver, all right? There are hedges against these things. I'm not telling you to go out and buy these things, but I intend to be in a bubble before the bubble even exists, all right? I intend to get wealthy off of this shit, generational wealth. You better fucking believe it. Not doing this here for fun and games. Well, it is fun and games, but I'm not doing this here just for fucking fun and games. Pardon my language. But you know when you get fired up, man, and shit just comes out at that point? You feel good sitting in your house coat and Spider-Man mask, you know? Feel like P. Diddy. Feel fucking good. Let's finish this off here.
In being overly dependent on the US dollar for their reserves, for their trade settlements. And so that's the basis on which we're seeing this BRICS concept emerge right now. That's why we're seeing it today as opposed to a year ago.
Exactly. All right, guys, I'm not going to hold you on this one too long. I got to go back and do some stuff. I just saw this, and I wanted to make sure you were in the know. I love y'all. See you guys on the next one.
Making major moves. We going all in. Like we got nothing to lose. We making moves. We making major moves. We making moves.